Hey everyone, it's Aaron, giving you my rundown about the research I did on a finance situation, and I chose the MLB salary cap, or I guess lack thereof salary cap. So just kind of giving a brief intro. The MLB is the only team of the four major sports, which include the MLB, NFL, NBA, and NHL, that does not have a salary cap put into place. However, they do use some other formations that they consider as a cap, but it's not quite as defined, basically. So just kind of defining a salary cap. A salary cap is an agreement or rule that places a limit on the amount of money that a team can spend on a player's salary. It exists as a pre-player limit or a total limit for the team's roster or both. Basically saying that you can't spend a certain amount on your salary or you can't go over that certain amount. And it's all basically resolves around having a competitive balance. And so there's two types of salary caps. There is a hard cap, which is very straightforward. There is a minimum amount a team must pay for their player salary and a maximum amount that they cannot exceed and then go anywhere in the middle. And once they exceed that once they reach that maximum point, they are pulled out of free agency bidding. They're kind of excluded from any trades that might reside in them going over the limit. Now, the second type is a soft salary cap, which is very similar to what the MLB has, but they don't define it as that. So a soft salary cap still has that lowest amount you must spend, and then that high threshold that you can't go over. However, teams are allowed to go over the maximum salary cap in exchange for a luxury tax. And so a luxury tax is a certain amount of money taxed only on the money that is over that salary threshold. So, for example, if there was a salary cap at $100,000 and someone spent $110,000, then the luxury tax would only be on that extra $10,000. And so, kind of leading into that, that is really similar to what the MLB uses. So the MLB uses two forms. They use the luxury tax, and then they also use revenue sharing. So their version of the luxury tax is a little bit different than some others, and I actually thought it was pretty effective overall. So this all started in 2003 by the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or the CBA, which is a big part of the MLB organization. So in 2003, the maximum salary cap was $117 million. However, you could, again, have that luxury to go over it for the luxury tax in return. And in 2017, now the threshold is at $198 million, so that's roughly going up about $6 million per year. So that's a pretty steady incline of what the maximum salary threshold can be. So their system is a little bit different in the way that it taxes it. So for the first year you go over that salary threshold, the team is forced to have a 17.5 to 22.5% luxury tax. Now, if a team does that a second consecutive year, they now have a 30% tax. A third consecutive year goes up to a 40% tax, and 4 or more consecutive years breaking the threshold is a 50% tax. And actually in 2016, so just last year, there was a big meeting kind of discussing if they should revise the way they do the luxury tax. And it's not yet implemented, but it's looking that it'll actually rise pretty drastically. So looking for 3 or more consecutive years to have a luxury tax of 92%, and that could be even happening in the next couple of years here. So the second form they used, like I said, was revenue sharing. So it's pretty simple. There is a 31% tax on all of the revenue that a team makes, and then all that money is then pooled up together and dispersed evenly between all the teams, basically. So it's a way to keep teams having a kind of an economic balance. So it's going to help the rich teams not just continually to blow out the other teams in searches of revenue, and those lower teams that are struggling to still have the revenue to be able to pay player salaries is the big picture. And that's kind of the way they use it as a way to limit teams' spending habits. So, I mean, a good example is, let's say the Mariners signed Robinson Cano for $20 million. But there is a 10% revenue tax. So now you got to look at, is Robinson Cano going to make me not only that $20 million, but it's going to also make me $20 million plus that 10% revenue tax. And so it kind of adds in a little bit of different formation from that. But currently for baseball, the revenue tax is set at 31%. So yeah, and so kind of how all of this kind of started and a lot of the disputes have started was back in the 1994 MLB strike. And so that was actually a Players Association strike, and it was mainly forced around salary cap issues. The CBA and MLB combined, and they actually did a couple illegal things back in 85 to 87, and they were secretly basically meeting to keep the players having a salary cap without the players actually knowing this. And so the players eventually figured this out. There's a big argument, and then in 1990, or actually 1988, that got complete wiped, and then player salaries were just on a huge uprise, and they're just growing statistically huge. And so then in 1990, the MLB realized this and knew there had to be some sort of a cap put in place. And so for that 4 years, there's this big debate on what they should do, which the MLB was pushing for a hard cap, which resulted eventually in the MLB strike. And then after the strike, that's when kind of they resolved things and realized they probably need to do some revenue sharing. And then back in 2003, like I said, that's when they finally implemented also the luxury tax. So that's kind of my spiel about my topic. I thought it was super interesting. I actually agree that the MLB should stick to the system it is and not implement any cap. I thought maybe they could add a soft salary cap, but otherwise use the exact same formation they have, and only use that soft salary cap to have the low bar set for team salary just to make them possibly more competitive overall. But otherwise, I thought it was pretty interesting. So thank you for listening.